Welcome to the SharePoint Patterns and Practices webcast. And this time, in this video, we're going to talk about what is the tenant-wide deployment of extension capability, which we from SharePoint Engineering released as part of the SharePoint Framework 1.6 version. And we're going to use, say, a really cool demo, which you can actually take advantage in your tenant as well if you want to really have a consistent footer across your tenant. Now, before we go to the demo and before we go to anything else, we want to obviously explain what the tenant-wide deployment means in practice, what is the capabilities of it, and what's actually possible. Now, my name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a senior program manager from Microsoft, and with me today, responsible of the demo and actually the code behind the demo as well, which, that would be a surprise, is a Waldek Mastercard. So, Waldek, will you do a quick intro as well?
Of course. Hi, everybody. My name is Waldek Mastercard. I am Office Development MVP. I work at Rancor, and today we will talk about tenant-wide deployment of SharePoint Framework extensions.
Excellent. So let's first start with a one slide with a kind of 3 points and 3 bullet points on this one, and really concentrate why is the tenant-wide deployment option a big deal. And this is actually a massive deal for SharePoint Framework customizations, or let's put it this way, reformat that one. It's a massive deal for modern experiences in SharePoint Online, because what it actually gives us is a capability of centrally control what extensions or what functionalities, what capabilities are available across all of the sites within your tenant. So in the past, you've been able to deploy a web part or a custom web part to your tenant and say that it's available to cross-tenant in all of the sites. But and that would have meant that web part is available in the web part picker. But for extensions, this has not been possible since or until the 1.6 release. So that's why this is a big deal. And really, this is therefore providing you a really easy way of providing a consistent end-user experience across all of the sites in a tenant. And this really is for activating. What it means is that the extension is activated automatically for every existing site or every new site. So it is actually runtime modification of things behind the scenes, and so the extension is consistently activated in all of the tenants. So you can actually introduce functionalities for all of the sites within your tenant. Now, anything in here, Waldek, what you want to actually add on the excitement? This is pretty cool, isn't it?
Well, excitement is, I think actually the big part is that when you think about how would you achieve it otherwise, if this thing was not available, right? So, sure, you could have something in place that would, like a script that would go across all your sites and add that thing that you want to add there, like, for example, a footer.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, users can create new sites, and there is no way, other than polling every minute or every 2 minutes, is there a new site that I need to adjust? So when you think about that, it's really inefficient, and this ability to deploy extensions from central place and also have them attached to newly created sites simplifies things significantly. So this is definitely a big change.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to be fair, you could actually use a site design and a site script if you would associate those to your site creation process. And as part of those, you can activate the extension automatically in the site. But again,
but what if you build a new extension and you won't have that applied to all sites that you?
Correct.
So there are quite a few ifs and buts that are being solved with this without all of the complexity.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the thing. The beauty of this one is that this is super easy to control and super easy to maintain, and you can modify the existing setup as well. So if you introduce hey, here's a new one footer, and then in 2 weeks you want to introduce the second footer, you can actually from one centralized location activate the new footer and replace the old one. And that's beautiful. That's absolutely great. So now, how does it actually work? So how does it really work in practice? So you actually are able to control what extensions will be activated on sites from a centralized tenant-wide deployment extension list, which is located in an app catalog site, so in an app catalog type collection. So by default, only tenant administrator can actually access the app catalog site collection, but obviously you can delegate permissions to manage of your add-ins and apps by adding additional people access on the app catalog. And then those people can control what are the applications and solutions available within your tenant, and also which of them are centrally activated across the tenant. Now, the solutions also, SPFx file as in SharePoint Framework solution, which is getting added on app catalog, it can actually contain automated entry to enable that extension to be deployed when the solution is being added on app catalog. This is a good thing and this is a bad thing, to be honest. The good thing is that you can actually have an automation in the solution level designed by the developer that that functionality should be activated by default in a tenant. Now, if the tenant administrator is not, however, aware of that, it might come as a surprise, like, hey, wait a minute, what is this new header across all of the sites? So, good reminder on the tenant administrators or the application catalog owners, they should always know what they're deploying so that there's no surprises there. But they can obviously they can disable that really fast as well. The third item supported, this is supported for application customizers and list view command sets. So you're able to basically push out application customizers and target them on using a web template, or then you're able to deploy list view command sets, which are basically buttons or context menu items in lists or in libraries. So you're able to say, for example, that, hey, this button or buttons should be available across every single document library in my tenant, and poof, voila, they will be available there by default. And that's actually super cool. And then the last thing, which kind of touched slightly, that the extension can be targeted based on a list or a template. So you're able to say that this list view command set is only for a custom list or only for a document library, or an application customizer. It can be targeted based on a web template. So you're able to say, here's the footer for all of the communication sites, and here's the footer for all of the group associated sites, and here's the footer for all of the classic theme sites using modern experiences. So you can easily define what's available and where. Now, in here, you probably have a few comments for like waiting on your backlog, right?
Well, I mean, I could go really deep in that, but I guess that it would make sense for us to show how it works first, and maybe then we go
yes.
to comments.
Yes. Let's then talk about the implications and what it actually means in practice. Now, before we go to the actual demo, this is just a high-level reference picture on what does it actually mean if the solution developer defines the entry inside of the SPFx file. So by default, when you create an extension solution, if you scaffold a project and you choose the extension, we actually create you the client-side instant XML file. Which is with the default entry. This is slightly modified already. So we've added here the list template ID attribute for the client-side component instance element, and also web template ID and a sequence. So these are elements which you can, or attributes which you can add to the client-side component element definition. And whenever this solution is activated on an application level, this entry is basically added on a tenant-wide deployment list, and then that activates the extension across the tenant. Well, technically, in this case, if we have a look on what we have here, we're saying that this application customizer should be activated on every single group associated theme site, because we're filtering this one to a web template with a web template ID group #0. So that would mean that this is only activated if it's a group associated theme site. Good, relatively clear documentation is available obviously in SharePoint Dev Docs on all of the options and how do you actually use them. So let's actually have a real life example. And the solution what you're seeing is available for you to download, so you're able to take that one into use as well. But let's jump on Waldek's computer and have a look on how does this work in practice and talk about the implications and all of that.
All right, so let's have a look in practice how you would use the tenant-wide deployment of extensions to deploy a footer that you can then enable across all sites and set it up for your needs. So here on GitHub, we have an extension that is ready to use, and we want to use that as an example. So here we are on the SPDev Solutions repo, and we go to Solutions. Here we have extension that we've already built, which is named Global Footer. And here is all of the code. You can see what it does and explains also the way it works. Here you can see it in action, and want to enable that on our sites in SharePoint. So we've already made a package available so that you don't need to get through all the code building, deploying. You can grab directly the SPFx, which we do here. So let me download that from here. It's already available on my machine. So now let me switch to my tenant. And let me go to the SharePoint tenant app catalog, to apps for SharePoint. And in here, we will add the SPFx that we just grabbed from GitHub. Show and find there. And let me just drag and drop it here.
Now, I have to, obviously at this point, there is already an existing file. That's fine. So let's get that one deployed. Now, pointing out this time, technically, well, it should not actually.
Yeah, let me remove it because it was already there. So just for the right effect, let me remove it and re-add it.
Perfect.
Because we want to show an important thing, which is this part, the warning which is in here. And I think was that the thing that you wanted to highlight, Vesa?
No, I was highlighting the fact that you should never ever actually download a random SPFx file from internet and just put it in your tenant, which we just, by the way, asked everybody to do. But,
well, I mean, yes, so we took a shortcut for the sake of brevity and time, but of course, whenever you go to GitHub or anywhere else, before deploying anything to your production tenant next to your confidential data, you should, of course, review first. And I guess there will be disclaimer on a screen, like a banner showing that before deploying anything to your production tenant, please review.
Cool.
Anyway,
okay, sorry about that jumping in.
Yeah.
But that's a really important point as well. So in this case, sorry for jumping in and explaining this as well, but this solution contains an entry which would activate the extension automatically within a tenant level. So there is a warning for tenant administrator to explicitly allow this. So if a tenant administrator doesn't feel comfortable of the application or this message, they should not deploy. And then they should have a discussion on, hey, what does it actually mean? So
exactly.
And one thing about to notice is put the checkbox because you need to use the tenant scope deployment option to be able to take advantage of tenant-wide extension deployment of extensions. So
correct.
Which sounds
so in our case,
confusing.
Yeah. Well, it makes perfect sense. You want this extension to be available on all sites, so you have to make it available on all sites. Period.
Yeah. Yes.
So easy. Anyways, in our case, we've built this so we know what's in it. We've put that in there. So we're going to deploy it, and even though that's a demo tenant, there is nothing confidential here. So we're just totally fine deploying it here. As you've said, Vesa, we need to ensure that this extension will be available on all sites. And then we also pay attention to the warning here that there is an extension that will be globally deployed to all sites.
Yeah.
We deploy that, and deployment is completed already. It's so fast. And now we're going to examine what's been put, how the extension is going to be enabled on all sites. So here we go in the tenant app catalog site. We go to the site contents. And in here, there is a new list that you might have not seen in the past named tenant-wide extensions. And you can see that there are 2 entries, and the reason for that is that before, when we deployed it and we overrode the package that was already there, it didn't show the warning which we wanted you to see, but it already added the entry. So to make it clear, if you would deploy it only once, you will get only 1 entry, so you will see this.
Yep.
There will be 1 entry. And what you see in here are a few elements. So there is the name of the extension, and that just meant to be there for you to easily identify what it is, right? Because otherwise you would see a GUID, and from that you wouldn't be able to make any sense like what that thing is. So in there is a name, and that just for pure info only. That doesn't do anything. Then there is the ID of the actual extension that will be enabled on all sites. And that's the important part, because if that doesn't match anything available in catalog, you will have error on every page.
Sure.
Then
the error isn't visible for every single page. It is visible only in a console, but still. So.
Correct. Then you see a JSON serialized string of properties that will be passed into extension. And here is exactly where the power of an extension comes in, because that allows you to set up the same extension in different ways for different sites, and also make it reusable across sites and tenants. So if you are an ISV, you can build your extension once, and different companies can use it in different ways tailored to their specific needs. Then we have options that are empty here, but which allow you to set on which types of sites and lists this extension should be enabled. In our case, it's everywhere, but you can set it to, for example, STS0 or STS3 to have it enabled on modern team size, or even to group 0, which would make it available to all groups or team sites or modern team sites associated with groups. Right. So,
well, would it make sense to click the edit item just from a presentation perspective? Just
of course.
Yeah, sorry, there we go.
Yeah. So here you could add STS3, right? So the point being that the package originally provided this part, but being an admin managing the catalog, you are free to adjust it to your need, and that whatever you change it will be reflected immediately across all enabled sites. And then there is also things like location. So in our case, we want to enable a footer, which is application customizer, but you could as well have a list view command set, and that would be shown here. And then another thing is sequence. So that determines the order in which the extensions are enabled. So imagine that you wanted to show, for some reason, 2 footers. Then with this, you would be able to control which one is going to be shown on the page first. And then finally, if for some reason, whether that's debugging or migration or anything, you want to turn this extension off, you don't need to actually remove the whole entry. You can just disable it here, and it will not show. So the whole entry will remain still in the list, so that you can turn it on again easily, but you actually don't need to remove the whole entry. So you can just check it here, and then it will be turned off.
Or you could have multiple entries, let's say, of the same footer, and then you're able to configurations of the same footer. You're able to test them one by one by just disabling. That's why the functionality is there. And what's beauty on all of these changes in here, everything is obviously automatically cached, but cache is refreshed immediately when you do any edits. So any change you do in this list, voila, it's automatically available in the site level.
So now that we have this in place, we have actually everything in place. So how about we see it in action? We have here a marketing site. Let me close this one so that it's clear that we have a footer. Let me reload this page. And now you can see our footer here in action. There you go. So it has 3 links, and there are some things going on that's loading. And while it's done, so here we see our 3 links. If we go to another site, and also another thing that you can see here, that this site is blue, and also the icons are blue. So the footer also takes into account the current site theme. Now let me open the same footer in the sales site, which is green, if I recall correctly. Yes, it is. And then the icons are green. So now let's change one of the links. So we go back to our tenant-wide extension list. We added the entry. And in here, let's change the announcements to SharePoint PnP. And let's don't change the URL, just the label. Save that. Let's go to this site, refresh it. And now you can see it's still being cached.
Yeah, the refreshing. You're slightly too fast. It should be.
Yes, there you go. SharePoint PnP. Yes. So, in other words, it assumes that you are not that fast refreshing your page, but here you can see it consistently refreshed across all my sites, right? And now we only show 2 sites, but if it would be 100 sites, doesn't matter, because the info, the config, is stored in single place and not copied to every site.
Correct.
Right, so that's being reflected immediately on runtime across the whole tenant, across all sites. How does that work in code? Right, so let me open that up. So here we have the project where our extension is source extension global footer, and that's just a footer. But the key part is that piece of XML here, where we actually say that is global footer, application customizer. This is component ID, which matches exactly the ID of our extension that we have specified here in the manifest. And that's a crucial part, because if they do not match, it won't work. And then finally, what we do here is we pass the initial value of properties that we want to be passed to the extension. And as we said, this can be changed on runtime as you please. And you can even add additional entries for the same extension to the list to have it set up across different sites differently. And you can turn them on and off as you please. Right? So this is just the initial state. And once that entry is available in the tenant-wide extension list here, you can change it as you. Anything you want to add, Vesa?
Not really. I think they went through quite nicely. And the whole point of this sample and solution design was that actually anybody already today, you can just go and take the SPFx file. If you always wanted to have a consistent footer, you can take that. You can just go back on the list view as the tenant-wide deployment list and modify that Contoso sharing is carrying to be whatever your company name is, Literal Adventure. Go beyond whatever the statement is what you want to have there. So it is really truly a reusable footer for you to take advantage as well. But I think that's it. So let's flip back on the slide and close up the webcast. Thank you, Waldek. And thank you, Waldek, one more time for the demo. So we basically showed an existing solution which you can download. It's available. You can find it from a video or webcast notes. How do you take that one into account? The solution itself contains an entry to be automatically added to the tenant-wide deployment list, which will then activate that footer across the whole tenant. And you can absolutely filter the footer to be available, for example, for group-associated team sites or communication sites or all of the sites or all of the modern experiences in your tenant. And this is a really good example of a really great implementation of a footer because you can parameterize what is the behavior of the footer. So what are the buttons and what is the label, what we actually see in the footer section as well. Anything else what you want to add here at this point, Waldek?
Well, actually, another thing that just popped into my mind is that the fact that we didn't show in a demo, but that's also the really cool thing that you could use this for, is that image, right? Like what you've seen now is that we've built a footer for which you can specify which links you want to show. But as we've shown, you can define on which sites or lists the extension is available. So using this approach, what you could do is you could enable the same extension across different types of sites using different links. So your com sites could have different links than your team sites. And there will be the same extension. So you build it once, and that's an essential part, right? That what you might be doing instinctively when you build web parts, that you expose the things that you want a user to be able to tweak in properties. Well, now you can do exactly the same in extensions, and it makes perfect sense. Because the more you allow admins to set up, the wider or the more broadly they will be able to use that across the whole tenant, and they will not require different extensions to be built, which are kind of the same, but just show different things, right? Yep. So you can build once, allow it to allow users to set it up, and then control the values through the centralized location in the tenant-wide extension list.
Yeah, and technically the same, let's say, property field and everything else could have been able to use this already before the tenant-wide extensions list existed. But sure, people, based on what we're seeing, people were not really thinking through all of the reusability scenarios for extensions. But now this is a really great example of actually showing how the extensions is really truly configurable. You can define what's available in the extension. You can change that to be Litware Adventures, or you can say Contoso Electronics, or whatever you want to use as the statement, and the buttons as well, and the URL targets of the links as well. So it's a good practice not to hard code everything, because you can define the needed parameterization based on the instance of the extension, like Waldek said. Cool. I think that's it for this one. So thank you, Waldek, for the great demo and also a great solution. The solution itself, like mentioned, is a open source solution available under the PnP brand. There's a link in the webcast notes, so you can easily find that. But I think that sums up this one. So thank you, everybody, for watching, and please keep the feedback coming. Thank you.
Bye.